and implementing ideas at work that we never do anything for personal. And maybe that's not important to you, but I find it very rewarding to do both. Some people find it really rewarding to not do anything when they leave the office, and that's okay too. But if you're somebody like me who's compulsive and can't stop doing stuff, it can be frustrating if you don't feel like you have the time to actually accomplish those things. So I talked about this yesterday. If you're trying to be an idea person and you're not really good at coming up with ideas, one way to make yourself find out if you're good at coming up with ideas is to put input in so that you can get the ideas out. And that goes back to reading and taking in information. And really kind of, when I decided that I potentially wanted to write a kid's book, the first thing I put on my goals list was not to write a kid's book. It was to buy and read a book about writing a kid's book. And so the first step in the on my goal list was get this book and read it. And so at the beginning, that was one of my goals I put at the end of the year for, I think maybe 2012. It's for 2013. So at the beginning of the year, 2013, when I looked at my goals for the year, I said, well, this is a really easy one to knock off the list. Buy the book, went on Amazon, bought a book, picked one or two books, and they came in. I sat down and I read them, and I got my gold check mark for the first gold check mark for the year, right? And it was actually, after I read the book, I found it pretty unhelpful. That's what I marked it down as, unhelpful in my mind after I read it. And I put it on the shelf, and that was it. Six months later, woke up one morning, had a couple of lines in my head for the beginning of the kids' book. And I just put those down. And then I started thinking about those two lines. And I kind of later on, a couple days later, spawned a couple more ideas, a couple more lines. And then a couple weeks later, one morning, I woke up and sat by the pool and wrote the whole thing. Then the process of editing, refining, and finishing comes into play. But it was the seed I planted from the book, even though I thought it was a bad book, that put the input in to allow me to get to the work stage that I wouldn't probably have gotten to had I not A, made the commitment, and B, gotten the book to start my mind working on it. We talked about this yesterday. You do have to create some time to think about these things. A, to just put down like, hey, what ideas do I have, and what would I like to do, potentially do, and lay that out. Think about that. And then once you decide you are going to do something, one of those ideas, you have to create some time for yourself to think. And that means, like, generally, if it's a personal project, you can't do it. You can't think about it really at work. If it's a work project, we all think about that at home, but probably shouldn't. So try to compartmentalize your thinking time on business and personal projects. I like to keep a backlog. We talked about Scrum last time with Travis during this advanced session. Talked about Scrum. One of the key points of Scrum is you keep a backlog. So you have, every time you come up with an idea, you put it on the list. And you keep this running list of ideas. And sometimes those ideas fall off the list without ever having any action taken on them. And sometimes they become big, big things. But if you don't have the backlog, you're at a loss sometimes for what you can work on. You talked about in the theory of constraints, you never want the constraint to not have any work to do. Well, you're your own constraint when it comes to coming up with and implementing ideas. So you got to make sure that you have that. There's always work there for you to do. Break down the project into lots of little steps. Once you commit to an idea that you're going to implement, there's nothing more daunting than saying, hey, here's the big idea I have. Now I got to do that. That can really cause a lot of paralysis when you're looking down the barrel of a huge idea and you're trying to think, how the hell am I ever going to accomplish that? Well, you're not. You're going to accomplish little bits of it, step by step, and then ultimately you'll look backwards and say, look at that big thing I built. Travis and I, early on in the company, we had one of the only major disagreements I can ever remember us having. And it really, like many of the disagreements we have, they're more philosophical than they are actual. But we were talking about what work we would attempt to do. And at that time, we really didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were just kind of helping small businesses do marketing or whatever. We didn't really know what we were, what we would do, and basically we needed to make money. And so my point was, we're going to do whatever the hell someone asks us to do. Because A, we need to make money, and B, we are pretty much capable of doing anything that we put our minds to, because we just have this superpower. We're able to strategize and focus and accomplish things. That's really kind of our strength. I know we put the hanging a marketing shingle out here, but we're not just good at marketing. We're good at a lot of things. We can do a lot of things. So if someone's going to bring some money to the table to pay us to build the Eiffel Tower, then we're going to figure out a way to build friggin' Eiffel Tower and get some money in the door. Like, and if we become a construction company, then so be it, whatever, right? Because right now, we're nothing. And so he was saying, basically, he was arguing with me, saying, like, that's not what we do, and we don't know how to build the Eiffel Tower, so that would be foolish to commit to doing something like that, and all of the logical reasons why we can't build the Eiffel Tower. And I'm saying, look, those are all just challenges, and we're good at solving problems, so we'll figure it out. So we'll build the damn thing. And now, look, we're building all kinds of damn things that we didn't know anything about building back then. So, but at the same time, we really needed to commit and focus on doing something. But I was just like, man, I'll take whatever we can get. So break it down into little steps. That's really how you're going to accomplish it. You can build the Eiffel Tower that way. Beam by beam. Work on things in bits, even if it's just thinking about it. Let's say you want to accomplish it. We do this a lot with presentations. So, like, for this meeting, we have to have the advanced presentation, and we have the idea for that, and we have to have the workshop idea, and we have to have the main presentation idea, and all the other stuff. And so it's like, man, we've got to come up with all these presentations. And so, but I know I'm going to have to come up with a presentation for the Back to the Future meeting. Like, I know now, and I knew before even this meeting, that I have to do that next time. So what I'll do is, I'll start thinking about it here and there. And whenever I come up with anything, any idea related to it, I put it down on paper. Because when it's time for me to say, okay, now I got to work on that presentation and I got to knock it out, we got to get it done, I'm going to come not to a blank sheet of paper, but I'm going to come to a piece of paper with a whole bunch of things on it. Pieces of work already done. And when you're trying to sit down and knock out a project, if you're working off a blank piece of paper, that is a steep mountain to climb, especially now that you have a deadline attached to it. But right now I have all this time where there's no deadline, and I can work on little bits and pieces of it, and ideas will come up, and I'll put them on paper, so that when I actually am under a deadline and I have to perform on that idea, I'm not starting from scratch. And all that little work that I did that was seemingly, it took no time and really wasn't working on the project, I was making massive gains on the work for the project. But a lot of people say, well, I'm not doing that right now, so I'm not going to think about it, or I'm not going to put that down, because there's nothing really there, it's not fleshed out yet, and I'll get to that later some other time when I go to work on that project. You just shoot yourself in the foot, really, because when you get there, then you're stuck, and you're stumped. And when it comes to, there's an axiom in writing that, people talk about writer's block. Anyone have ever have writer's block? Well, writer's block is intensified or created by a blank piece of paper. Like, writer's block is a blank piece of paper. It's horrible. So a lot of writers writers use tricks to basically de-block themselves and basically trick their own mind to write easier. And what they do is the key is to just write something. If you're going to sit down and you have a blank piece of paper, you haven't done what I said, which is put down stuff all along the way. You're sitting down on a blank piece of paper. Don't think about what you're going to write. Just start writing. Put words on the piece of paper. Type, Mary had a little lamb, police was white as snow, blah, 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 blah. I've heard people say type the Lord's Prayer. I've seen people type, free write, which is just stream of conscious. I'm sitting here typing that I'm sitting in front of the typewriter and our computer, and I have no ideas to put on this piece of paper right now. I have total writer's block. I don't know what I'm doing. And you write that, and then until you start writing something that's related to the project, and it will come. Or you write all of that, and you take a step back and you say, okay, for this project, would I start it with Mary Had a Little Lamb? No. Well, what would you start it with? Something else. And then that something else replaces Mary Had a Little Lamb, because now you're not writing, you're revising. And revising is a hell of a lot easier than writing. Rewriting is easier than writing. So write something and then just rewrite it, even if what you wrote was gibberish. It's a trick. It just tricks your mind into making progress. Because the feeling that you've got progress allows you to make more progress easier than the feeling that you're starting at zero. Keep a file on the project. So this is where you would deposit all of those little ideas that you come up with all along the way. Whether sometimes I'll know, and this is why you need a backlog, so you have the list of the ideas that you're working on or projects that you could work on, and you kind of look at that on occasion, so you kind of keep that Rolodex in your head. If I'm out and about and I see something, I'll take a picture of it. It's like, oh, that might be interesting, spawn an idea for that project that we might do. Click, I'll take a picture of it, and I'll file it away in the folder that's for that project. I use Evernote for this. I mean, you can use paper folders if you want, but I just find Evernote is just the ultimate resource tool for keeping lists of ideas and keeping projects going in a single space. You can take pictures and put it there. It's accessible over all your devices. So if you have your phone or you're in front of your computer or even somebody else's computer, you can log into it and all of your stuff is there. And you can take a picture of a whiteboard with text on it, import it into Evernote, and we'll turn it into searchable text. It's amazing. I mean, it's just, they got little scanners that you can scan stuff in and it'll put it in Evernote. I mean, they got all kinds of tools. But I don't use any of that except for the phone, but it works awesome. Really important, fill in the talent gaps. That's why this is so critical as a first step. Because you need to know what your strengths are, so you know what you're going to work on for yourself and what you're not going to work on because it's not in your wheelhouse. And then you're going to find people who can fill in all the holes. Again, this is another reason why Travis and I work so brilliantly together and have a partnership that's sustainable, because we both have different skill sets, we both have strengths, and we both have significant strengths, and we both have significant weaknesses, and we fill in those gaps for one another. So we have a real respect for the things that each other does really well. And we know where each other is strong and where each other is weak. Now, over time, because proximity and working together for so long, we've morphed into more of an amalgamation of, weaker versions of both of us. So he's become more creative and more action-taking and less analytical, and I've become more analytical and slower. So it's we kind of have become more alike over the years, but we still have our edges, and they're pretty sharp. Obviously, he has a natural penchant for numbers and details, and those things are uninteresting to me. They just don't even compute. I can remember lots and lots of little details, but if it has a number in it, it doesn't even go into my brain. Doesn't enter. Will not remember anything that has a number in it. And it's not by choice. So this is the importance of this. Because even if I wanted to, it doesn't happen. I mean, I have to really, really work hard. And so I say, why the hell should I work hard? I just tell him, and he'll remember. So he's like my Rolodex for the details that I need to remember that I'm not going to. That, or he can have Evernote. So I got Travis and Evernote. Two things you need. Keep a virtual bench. So when you've identified your gaps and you fill those gaps with talented people who can complement you, you don't want just one of those. You need multiple of those because every one person either, people are unreliable, generally. So, and sometimes they're not under your full control, so people do have other jobs and other projects and other this and other that. But when you want to get something done, you want to get it done fast, you need those people. So you need to have a virtual bench. So kind of think of it as your personal dugout for talent that fills the gaps that you have. And so you always want to be looking for people, getting their contact information, putting them on in your virtual bench. And this could just be a Word document or a spreadsheet of the people and their talents and their skills and their names and their contact information. But you should cultivate the bench. You shouldn't just find the people and then put them on the spreadsheet and forget about them. You should create a system for touching those people on a regular basis, keeping them in the loop and saying, hey, here's some of the projects I'm working on, or some of the thoughts I had, or how you doing, and you keep those people working so that when you do need them, boom, you can reach out and get someone.
When you buy this the set of books, can you say hand all my sales guys, instead of buying them all, individual books and have reading, or can you, the first time you take a test is you can't go back and take it?
Yeah, one book per test.
Okay.
But you don't have to buy both.
Yeah.
You only have to buy one of the Now Discover Your Strengths, and you have to buy this one for every person you want to take the test.
Yeah.
And you can do a summary of the main philosophy and just say, hey, take the test, and then we'll outline your strengths, and we'll talk about your strengths, your specific strengths, and work through it together. Jill?
Can you give an example of what you mean by people in your virtual bench? Is it like graphic designers and print people and those kind of things?
Vendors, individual talent. So I constantly need graphic design work because I come up with lots of ideas that are very graphic intensive, and I have absolutely no drawing skill. If I had art skills, I'd be a freaking madman. I probably wouldn't even be here. I'd be drawing shit and doing creative work constantly. But I have absolutely no art skill. I mean, I can't sculpt, I can't draw, I have terrible handwriting, I can't draw a stick figure. It's awful. And it's one of my biggest frustrations because it's such a powerful tool. So I'm constantly needing graphics people. And my own people are so loaded down with work projects that my personal projects, I don't use my work people. So I have to have another whole art department, virtual art department at the ready. And so I use tools like Elance and Guru.com and Fiverr to test people. Because you can test people on small projects for a low amount of money, and then if somebody's good, the problem is there's lots of these people, but the quality is a vast array. So got lots of people, but lots of them suck, and a handful of them are really good. And then you've got ranges of cost too. So you have some really good that cost a lot, and some really good that cost a little. But to find the guy who's really good that costs a little, that's the work. And when you find that guy, you want to have that guy on the bench, because he's worth a fortune to you, because you can, especially if they're quick. So you keep a virtual bench, and so it could be, it could be developers, web people, and then there's different, categories. Like I got WordPress guy, and I got small development guy, front end, back end, different types of projects. You got illustrators, graphic designers, and they're different. The person who can draw by hand and create front-hand drawings, vector images out of front-hand drawings is different than the guy who does graphic design work. And so you have to know what kind of projects what you need for a project, which is part of the beginning part of the project, which is to identify what you're going to do and what you need to outsource and what talent's required. And then as you do projects, you'll create the bench naturally, because you'll have to find the people to do the project, and then you put those people on the bench if they're good. And then the final key is commit to the idea. Once you've decided, okay, this is something I really want to accomplish, commit to the idea, assemble the team, and assemble the components, and then do the hard work, which is execute and finish. Finishing, this is one of the biggest reasons why people either create crappy work or don't finish to get completed projects done. It's because it gets to the finishing stages and they crap out. It's because everybody gets 99% of the work done, and when they hit that 99% point, they take a deep breath and they go, we're done. Thank goodness, project's complete. But that 1% at the end takes as much time and is as complicated as the first 99%. And everybody stops because everybody takes a break right there. And the people, it's really almost a completely different set of people who have the skill set to finish a project than the ones that can take it from start to 99%. Because finishing is tedious work. It's like we're going to check all our work, and we're going to make sure it operates, and we're going to make sure that it looks clean, and it's every little piece of it is right, and it's detail work. And a lot of people who are creative and can do the bulk of the work can't do the detail work. And so sometimes you have to switch teams at the end and get different people to finish. But if you don't finish, then the rest of the work is worthless. Or you'll do really great work, but output mediocre finished product because your finishing people were wrong or bad. And so it really takes... it's like you have to be the general contractor on the project to at the end say, okay, do we have the people we need to finish this? Is this really finished? Because they'll call it done, and somebody's got to question whether it's actually done. And I'll see that happens a lot. It's just a natural part of project work when the team will say, okay, we're done, and then be like, are you sure we're done? Let's take a look, and we're not done. We got a week's worth of work left. If they were going to call it done, they called it done. And it takes the person with the right mindset, you particularly, go back and ask the questions. Most creative people don't like to check their work and finish. So those are the 10. I don't know if you got all 10. You want me to go over them one quick time, or do you think you got them? Yeah. Input yields output, create time to think, keep your pipeline full, that's the backlog. Lots of little steps, break down the project. Work in bits, even if it's just thinking. Shuffle, I didn't talk about this one actually, so I missed one. Shuffle priorities. On your backlog, a lot of people say, I'm going to work on this next. So they put it next in line, and then for some reason they don't have the resources to do project 2. And so then they don't work on any more projects because they got to do project 2 next, and they're not ready to do project 2 for whatever reason. So no projects happen. Well, you got to be okay with being more fluid than that. You can the project can shuffle priority at all times. And that's okay. So be open to and understand that projects shuffle in priority all the time. And so do that. Shuffle the priority. It's okay. Keep a file on the project. Fill in the talent gaps. Keep a virtual bench. And commit, assemble, and finish. How many of you guys have personal projects that tend to not ever get done? So, I don't know if we're past time here. Huh?
I'm in there too.
Okay. What I want you to really do, if you have personal projects that you'd like to do that you tend to not ever get to, what I recommend that you do, or what I challenge you to do, is start at the beginning. Make a backlog. Make a backlog of your personal items that you'd like to accomplish. And pin that backlog up on your wall. And say, these are the things. And once that's pinned up on your wall and you've been looking at it for a little while, when you feel the urge to say, you know what, I want to do one of these, pick one and just make a list of all the elements that you're going to need to actually get it done. The steps, the people. And I think that when you if you just take those 2 steps, writing your backlog of personal projects you want to create, and then when you feel like the urge you want to do something, pick one and break it down into its component parts.